Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Welcome to our advanced class as we have an interesting article about society today. We're so happy to have all of you listening in all over the world, and especially people who are celebrating the Lunar New Year season. I think it's actually Chusan, or the third day today, isn't it, Hazel?
I think so. So some people may be traveling.
I think most people are on vacations already, but, some people might want to check the web and listen to the program anyway. But we're glad you're here with us. And in our class today, we have one of our new staff members and editors of Advanced Magazine. We have Brandon with us. Hello, Brandon.
Hello, Doris. It's great to be here today.
How do you like Advanced program? Do you like it?
Well, I like Advanced because there's so many different interesting things to talk about, and they're also helpful. A lot of times, I'm reading through all of these articles, and I find helpful information for myself as well.
Well, the teachers that teach Advanced, it's like getting a university education because we have to look up everything ourselves. So we're learning at the same time, and I think Hazel found that out too when she joined Advanced class, didn't you?
Well, that's usually true, but when you're talking about buying stuff, I've been pretty informed about that for a while.
Well, Hazel, I've been to your apartment, and you got some stuff over there,
Yeah, I do. Maybe too much stuff.
But part of it is dogs, though, and they're not stuff, right?
No.
How many dogs have you got, Hazel?
Well, I have 3 dogs right now.
See, and they take a lot of stuff, don't they? Dogs' toys, right?
I've got lots of dogs' toys, that's right.
Well, we're so glad that Hazel can join us. Usually Hazel is on Let's Talk and Studio Classroom. She does the skits and the funny parts, but now she's got to do some serious talking today, Hazel.
Oh, I'll do my best.
Okay. So everybody, if you have your magazines and you're not driving your car, then open up your magazine to page 40, and we're going to talk about this article. I guess it's a culture article, but it's really something that everybody is involved with no matter what culture you're in. It's having things, 东西, stuff. Hazel, why do they say stuff here instead of things?
Well, you can use either word, stuff or things. Belongings is another word, but maybe because stuff is not enough. Notice those 2 words rhyme. Stuff is not enough.
Oh, that's clever. It would take Hazel to notice that. Stuff is not enough. But, stuff is a noun in this case, but there is a verb when you stuff something, too. You put things into things, you stuff things, don't you?
And you get the idea that it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you say, oh, I'm stuffed. You ate too much.
Your stomach is stuffed, right?
Mm-hmm. So maybe that's another reason. When we think of stuff, we often use the phrase, I have too much stuff. It means more than enough.
And I think sometimes when we talk about the things that we have, the possessions we have, but when we say stuff, I think we get the idea that it's also not very important things. Do you think so?
Right, yeah. When you have lots of extra things, and you can also say lots of extra stuff, maybe things that you don't really need. So maybe you should either get rid of it or think about, next time you try to buy something, do I really need this or not?
That's a good idea. So the question here is, can the things we buy really make us happy? Is that a good question?
It's a very good question. We should ask ourselves that. Perhaps many people do buy things with the idea that if I had this, then I would be content. And probably that's not true.
But the people who want to sell us things don't like that question because they say, never mind, buy it anyway. It might make you happy, right?
Mm-hmm. And there's some truth to it. I think it makes us happy perhaps for a short time, but maybe paying for it later won't bring us joy.
Well, that's true. So on page 40, we're going to begin the article thinking about things that we have, possessions we have, or stuff. And I think people all over the world like to have things. From the time we're born, we say, Mama, Daddy, buy me this or that. And it kind of seems like we like to have a lot of extra things, don't we?
It seems to me. I know I do.
I like to have lots of things as well.
And some things do make you happy, but it's got some good words and good vocabulary in here today. So we're going to look at the article and look at the vocabulary and see what we can talk about during this New Year season. I know a lot of you have a lot of stuff now you didn't have because you were given things for the New Year season. You bought things with your home bows, with your money. Mm-hmm. And so it's a good time to think about this, a lighter subject for these days of the holiday. So let's read the whole first 3 paragraphs down through line 24.
Stuff is not enough. Can the things we buy really make us happy? Since the first humans began coveting non-essential objects, the pursuit of stuff has been part of daily life. Americans arguably have more stuff because they have a lot of discretionary income. Go to any shopping center and look around. How many of the wares offered there are truly necessary? Whether viewed as a force behind progress or as a burden to be shed, humanity's long and complicated relationship with material possessions can't be denied. But perhaps it can be better understood. As an American Studies teacher at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, Janet Rose tells her students that attitudes about stuff are ultimately tied to feelings of self-worth, including the wish to be superior. It's that classic thing where people try to justify their own consumption by pointing out the deviance of the consumption of others. So the real truth is that it's making judgments about other people.
Well, it's a long time since the first human beings became, part of the earth here, but I don't know what it was like then. But I guess people always liked to have things. But I think there's a difference in owning something and coveting something, isn't there, Brandon?
That's right, Doris. The things that you own, those are things that obviously you already have that stuff or those things. But when you look at someone else's stuff and you think, I would like to have what they have, then you're coveting what someone else has.
So coveting, in a sense, is not really a good word, I don't think.
No, it's desiring something that belongs to somebody else. Actually, a long time ago, it was written in the Bible. The law of Moses said, "Thou shalt not covet," or don't want something that doesn't belong to you.
Right. It's something God says better not do that, because when people covet something, they want it so badly they might steal it or maybe even murder somebody for it. So coveting, it brings a strong desire to have something that is really more than you should have. You shouldn't really, you can say, well, I might like that. It would be okay, but what I really coveted. So I think they're just using this word here. I don't think they mean it to be that strong. But I would say, when you look at, you say, well, I wouldn't mind having that, is quite different than coveting it, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. If you're just thinking, that looks nice, maybe in the future I would like that, or maybe I'd like it right now, but I'm not focusing all of my attention on it. And I think what they're talking about here is just, I kind of want that, but I'm not spending all day thinking about that. That's when it becomes a real problem.
Well, and then the third line down there they talk about, fourth, says coveting non-essential objects. Now, when you covet something, maybe you really covet somebody's car or something because you need it for transportation. But when you covet somebody's fur coat or something you don't really need, maybe, non-essential would be what kind of things?
Something that's really not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So we do need clothes, and of course we need a place to stay and some other essential items. But
you could use a bicycle instead of a car, Hazel.
That's true. But there's a lot of fun things that you really don't need. They're not necessary. They're non-essential, but they'd be a lot of fun.
That's right. Yeah, you don't always need everything that you see in the store. Every time you pass by a store, you see something that you would like, but you know it's not necessary, so you have to be careful when you're shopping.
I don't think the store owners would like this article because they want you to buy everything you see. They try to make it appealing to you. But we talk about the pursuit of stuff has been part of daily life. Now, in America, we're always talking about Americans, like to believe in the pursuit of happiness and to chase after happiness. And they're using this idea, the pursuit of something, chasing after something, saying instead of pursuit of happiness, they're saying the pursuit of things has been part of daily life. And I don't think that happiness and things is actually the same, is it?
Well, it's not the same, but some people think that the more you have, of course, the happier you'll be. And that's not true. But it says maybe Americans have more stuff because they have more discretionary income.
Well, that's a very big phrase there, discretionary income.
Right. When you get paid, some of your income goes to pay the bills. But sometimes you have money left over and that to spend as you want to spend. And so that's what discretionary income would mean, money that you can do with whatever you want to do with.
So then you use that as your own choice or the things that you like. That's your discretion or your choice. Now, children didn't used to have very much. Sometimes their parents would give them allowance and they could buy something with it, like school books or something. But discretionary means they could go out and buy a hamburger or a hot dog or a new jacket or something. But kids didn't used to have very much discretionary income. Do you think they have more now, Brandon, than they did about 40 years ago?
I do think they have more now, and I think a lot of times, they save that money up for maybe a video game or something like that. And before, I don't think kids would be able to purchase those type of things. So I think probably parents are giving their kids a little bit more money than in the past, so they have more discretionary income these days.
I think that's true with all cultures, not only Americans or Chinese or all over the world. Most places, there are some places that are very poor, certain countries in Africa and in Asia that don't have much. But most of us now have more choice. We have money that we can use for whatever we'd like to. So if you go to a shopping center and you see all the things, I often say, I wonder who's going to buy that.
I know, some things you wonder, but I guess some people buy them.
Right. Well, when you look at all those things in the shopping malls and on the streets and advertised on TV, how many of those wares, what's another good word for wares?
Products is another good word for wares.
How many of those products are truly necessary? Probably not too many of them.
Yeah, how many do you really need? When I look at the word wares, I might think of houseware, things for your house. Mm-hmm. Or hardware is actually things for building products. There's a hardware store you can go to. So sometimes you see that word that's added to another word.
Silverware.
Yeah, silverware. Right. So just things that you use or need or don't need.
Well, we might need some of those things, but we don't need as many sometimes. Mm-hmm. Just that we don't need clothes, but how many do we need? That's the question, isn't it? Well, whether, we view this as a force that is behind progress, like a burden to be shed. To shed just means to get rid of. Should we get rid of all this thing? But humanity's or people's long, you could say desire, complicated relationship with material possessions. Now, I don't think we have a relationship so much with things. Usually relationships have to do with people, don't they?
True, but when I'm cleaning and I have to get rid of some things...
You get a relationship with it.
Yeah, sometimes I have more of a relationship than I thought. I can't get rid of this. I've had it for years. I kind of like it. It reminds me of a trip I took. Or maybe someone special gave it to you. So maybe there's some
little relationship. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I think the beginning of this sentence, it reminds us of two different points of view. One, people think that products and things are the force behind progress.
Yes.
It's a good thing, for the economy, and you want to keep buying things and advertising. Everything is good. Then the opposite viewpoint is, too much stuff. It's a burden. We have to get rid of it. So I just wanted to point out that this sentence has 2 points of view, very different.
Well, it has to do with, like you say, what we consume and what we sell, and we're going to talk about that later. But one of the American Studies teachers at this university in Missouri, in Kansas City, she told her students some things about their attitudes. And what did she say about it?
Well, she was talking about that many times stuff is tied to our self-worth. And we're wishing to be maybe better than someone else or wishing to have more things than other people. And in America, a lot of times we use the phrase keeping up with the Joneses, meaning that we look at our neighbors, we look at the people around us, and we think, they have more stuff than I do. I need to get some more stuff. So I think she's saying that because of the stuff that we have, it lets people know who we are. And that's what the people are thinking anyway.
It's true. Like if you have, when you're a kid and you have one doll and your neighbor has 10, they bring them out and play with them and say, well, you're not very important. You don't have as many things. So sometimes as we grow up, we get that idea of the more things we have. It makes us really have a little more self-worth. Do you think so, kids?
Well, yes, I think that seems to be what advertisers want us to believe. And again, we might talk about that later, but you feel if you don't have nice things, maybe you are not as valuable as someone that does.
Mm-hmm. So it's what they call, it's that classic thing where people try to, when you try to justify, you try to think of very good reasons or excuses and why you need to buy all these things. And what are some of the reasons and excuses that we come up with?
Well, I think that when I pass by a store or something, I think, wow, that looks really good. And I think I would like to have that. And then something comes to mind, oh, maybe you shouldn't buy that. But then I'll think of, well, I need this for this occasion. This would, make this work better. I need to look better. I need to look professional or something like that, and it makes me buy something. It helps.
It says sometimes we even look at someone else. Why shouldn't I buy this? My friend has 5 of these, and I don't even have one. So sometimes it says we look at the deviance, the problems that other people have when they buy things, and we think, perhaps I'm not as bad as they are, so it's probably okay.
Right.
But then that's making judgments about other people, and that's not a good thing usually. Well, let's read on and finish today's reading, and we're going to be getting into the subjects which we'll talk about again tomorrow. So let's get a good start by finishing today's reading.
Can you afford it? Trying to offer a judgment-free zone for stuff is veteran flea market retailer Rodney Hartle of Kansas. On weekends, he convivially occupies his flea market booth, which is stuffed with sports memorabilia, books, records, gold and silver coins, designer plates, dolls, glassware, Christmas ornaments, and loads of jewelry. Many of Hartle's customers are glad to buy stuff that they couldn't afford earlier in life. But sometimes even those purchases require a certain rationalization. When you get to the point where you can afford it, you really may not want it, Hartle said. But you still think back, well, when I was a kid, I wanted that. One thing Hartle doesn't desire is people overspending. One lady who buys jewelry from me will say, I don't really need this ring, but I've got to have it. I say, well, maybe you can't afford it. Does that ever change her mind? Never, he said.
When you look at the way people write, they try to make things interesting and say them in different ways. And I probably wouldn't write like this at all, but it's kind of interesting here in line 25 when they're talking about Rodney Hartle of Kansas. And he talks about offering a judgment-free zone for stuff. In other words, you don't have to judge other people. Just get out there and pass it on and sell it to somebody else. And don't judge them and say, how come you've got so much stuff, Hazel? Right?
That's right. But remember, Rodney Hartle is a flea market retailer, so if he sells things, that's good. But in other words, he's not judging people for buying things or not buying them. So that's why he talks about a judgment-free zone.
Well, and he loves, his flea market booth. He's got a very friendly manner, it says here. What's that word that it says about that?
Yeah, he uses the word convivially, meaning that he's very merry. He's very happy to be there to sell these things to people.
Sounds like a regular salesman type, But it's stuffed with all kinds of things like sports memorabilia. Now, a lot of people have sports memorabilia or things that you did from school or books or records. I think you've got a lot of memorabilia, Hazel.
Yeah, I've got some things.
Where you've traveled, places you've been?
Sure. It's fun to collect things. But the problem is sometimes I'll say, oh, but I collect these. I should buy it. But actually I have quite a few little collections, so...
You don't really... You can sell
kind
yours
of
down there
justify.
sometime, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Maybe
good idea.
one day I'll retire on eBay. Yeah.
You have to figure out how to use it first, But there's all kinds of things. If you go to a flea market, I look at all those things and I thought, who'd buy that? I mean, we're all trying to get rid of those. Don't you wonder why people buy some of that stuff at flea markets?
Right, yeah. Sometimes when I go to a flea market, I look at the things and, some stuff is interesting and other stuff I just look and look and look and I'm like, I don't want any of this stuff. I have this stuff at home and, I may want to get rid of that myself. Why do I want to buy it here?
I know, and old Christmas ornaments and jewelry that you don't wear and all those kind of things. But a lot of those customers, they're glad to buy stuff that they couldn't afford. When I was little, I couldn't afford all those stuffed animals, so I'm going to buy them now. Because I couldn't afford them when I was little, see. Sometimes people do that, Hazel.
Well, and we all enjoy memories of the past, I think. Even if you used to have it when you were a child. I used to have one just like that. Oh, I would love to have it again. So there's lots of reasons we can tell ourselves to buy things.
Hazel did a very good example there of rationalization, because sometimes you have to rationalize. You say, well, it reminds me of my mother and she's not here anymore. And you kind of rationalize why you're buying all this thing. Well, I don't like it, but I have friends that come and they might like it. And rationalizing really just means what?
Well, you could say justify, to give good reasons to do something. And maybe they're not really good reasons. Maybe you could say, well, I just got a little extra money. It's been Chinese New Year and I got a hongbao, so I might as well spend it. So there can be so many reasons. You talk yourself into it.
If you study any kind of psychology, whether it's high school or university or anything, this is one of the big terms. We rationalize our reasons for getting angry, our reasons for buying things. Anything we do, we have a good reason for it. Maybe we don't, but that is what we call rationalization, isn't it?
It's very close to the word excuse, isn't it?
Well, it is. It is making a good excuse. That's right. So, like you said, Hazel, maybe he'll say, well, when I was a kid, I wanted that and things like that. And sometimes he says, sometimes people spend too much money, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really need this, but I have to have it and so forth. But maybe you shouldn't have it. And so he might mention it to them. Do they change their mind after he talks to them about it?
He says they never do. They never do. So he gives an example. The lady says, I really don't need this ring, but I've got to have it, which is kind of a cute phrase, kind of a saying. I don't need it, but I'm getting it. I want it.
Right. Well, let's see what our skit says about this today.
Hey, Gary, look at this old football I bought down at the flea market. It's autographed by the legendary Bruiser Hagerla of the Chicago Bears.
Oh, wow. That's a real valuable piece of memorabilia, Randy. I've been coveting one of those for years. Oh, did I show you my new MP3 player? I love the new color scheme.
Don't you already have 4 other MP3 players?
Sure, but none of them look this cool. The stripes on it make it look like a zebra. Hey, is that your new car over there? The red BMW?
Oh yeah, that's mine. You should see the buzz I created at the office when I showed up for work last week. Everybody was jealous.
How can you afford that? Do you have enough discretionary income for the payments?
No problem, Gary. I just make the monthly payments with my credit card.
I don't know if that's a good idea, Randy. Credit card debt is a pervasive problem in America right now, and many people are dealing with chronic debt and even going bankrupt.
Didn't you pay for that new sailboat of yours with your credit card?
Oh, I guess I did. But that was only $5,000. Not the same as a brand new BMW.
Sounds like you're rationalizing that credit card purchase as only $5,000. At least I can drive my BMW to work. How often do you drive your sailboat to work?
I get your tongue-in-cheek reasoning. Hey, here comes Brandon. What's up, Brandon?
Oh, I'm on my way to donate this plasma TV to the orphanage downtown.
Didn't you just buy that big, fancy TV just last month?
Yes, I did, but I soon realized that it was a compulsive purchase. I really don't need it. I've been deviating from my budget, so I need to stop wasting money and give to those in need.
Oh, I guess you're not interested in my BMW and Bruiser Hagerla autographed football.
Would you like to buy a sailboat, Brandon? It's only been used twice.
Guys, maybe you should buy less and give more of yourselves. You'll be happier.
Well, there's certainly a good point to this lesson, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's time to wrap it up for today, but we will continue talking about it tomorrow. Where all this pleasure and everything, can we really buy happiness? It's a good question, isn't it?
It is a good question because just because we have stuff, we have to think, is this really going to make my life better, or am I going to be happier as a result? You have to really think through that.
That's right. So be thinking about it, but enjoy what you do have today anyway, and have a good time over these next few days of holiday for most of you all over the world. And thank you for being with us in advanced class. We'll be with you again tomorrow at the same time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.